Well, good morning, everyone. We have big news today, a lot of news to go through on the injury front, bye weeks, everything. And so, as usual, welcome to NFL Fantasy Matchup. Jed all over to my right, Jimmy on the bottom. Good morning to you, everyone.
Morning.
Well, hey, look, the biggest news of the day is probably, there's the Jameis Winston injury, torn ACL, but the biggest one that affects a lot of fantasy teams, and I know it affects you, Jed, here. The one person that we thought would never, ever break down, Derrick Henry, probably will be out for the season. Foot surgery today. Jed, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously disappointed for him. And, you just realize I was looking at the rushing leaders. He was the rushing leader with almost 1,000 yards, 969 yards. The second place rushing lead, and I forgot who it was, he's at 600 yards. So it just shows you how Derrick Henry is such a talent and far and away the best. It's going to be difficult to replace. The backup in Tennessee there, it's going to be a committee approach. You heard that they signed Adrian Peterson. Again, Peterson is not going to be Derrick Henry. He's basically going to become like a goal line back. And then the other back there will become like the pass catching third down back. So they'll have to use a committee, but big blow. But hopefully, this is a part of fantasy. Hopefully you have another back there to hop in.
Yeah. Jed, for me, is Jimmy and I are in the 12-team league with another set of friends. Derrick Henry in the 12-team league was by far away the best player. Carry my team every week, him and Dak Prescott. I'm in first place with one loss because of Derrick Henry. Now all this is shattered. And I was sitting there. I didn't get a chance to watch too many of the games this Sunday. So sitting there, why does he only have so few points? Only to realize the next morning that he is out with a foot injury.
And he actually played through that injury, so he finished the game. But one good point is, to think about what does this do to Tennessee? Because to me, Tennessee is going to focus on the passing game now. This may be a time to rethink Ryan Tannehill. I also think Julio Jones, who's, hasn't been playing that great, but with more attention to the passing game, those are two pickups you need to consider.
Yeah. Jim, thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, just thinking about this, McNichols, I think, is going to be a hot pickup. The problem that that you see with the Titans, though, is their offense, like you said, Jed, is really predicated around a big back like Derrick Henry, who's running down the middle or running around the field. And so that's how they get the Julio Jones of the world. That's how they're going to get the A.J. Browns of the world open, is so that they use Derrick Henry. Problem with McNichols then is because he's such a pass catching back and he's not a big guy, the question then becomes, can Adrian Peterson become that player? I just think Peterson's old, right? Like, even if he gets to that point where he can do half the production of what Henry does, it's going to take him a few games just to even get used to it. If you look at the Titans schedule, they've got a packed schedule. They're playing some really good teams. And so I just think that the only person, here's me, if I had a waiver wire or auction, I'll spend a little bit on McNichols. I'm not going to spend a lot of money. I think A.J. Brown is the best player that you can play off that team right now. So.
Yeah. Jed, if you had, let's say, the waiver wire one pick, are you going to pick Jeremy McNichols? Are you going to pick Adrian Peterson? Or you're going to say, let's hold and let's see?
No, yeah, I agree with Jimmy. I think it's going to be a running back by committee approach there. And there are others out there who I think are more interesting. As an example, James Robinson also went out on the Jags. And who's the backup again for Jacksonville? That's the guy who I'm actually interested in because of just the number of carries. So I think there's I can look that up, but I think there's – who is it?
Oh, no, I was going to say Jed. So Schefter did come out and say that the injury to Robinson isn't as serious, so he's day-to-day now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's helpful. But the bottom line is I would not use my waiver wire priority or my auction, on McNichols at this point. I think there's others I'd rather go after.
I think the other thing to also realize today's the deadline for all of these trades, right? I think it's like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock today. And so I think that's the other thing to monitor before waiver wires is who's going to get traded, right? Like we saw Von Miller get traded from Denver. Taysom Hill from Baltimore is rumored to be out there. Marlon Mack from Indianapolis. So I think just monitoring all of the trade deadline activity today is also going to be important to look at who you want to pick up tonight.
That's a great point. And with the 4 bye week teams, it's going to be a lot of action. So I think if anything, this is the week you got to pay more attention, be really careful and strategic in your play. It was the one I was thinking about was Carlos Hyde. But if Robinson is okay, then you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, got it. Just so you know, the teams on bye are the Detroit Lions, Seattle Seahawks, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Washington football team. So I'm looking at some of my teams with both McLaurin and Gibson and McKissick. They're already out as well too. Jim, in terms of what do you call it, Adrian Peterson, I'm accepting more, probably like 12 carries, 49 yards, maybe a touchdown as well too. I mean, I don't know. There's really nothing to say. I think with certain teams, Derrick Henry is a huge loss. So we'll see see what happens. Hey, with Jameis Winston, with his torn ACL, how confident are you in the rest of the team? Can Alvin Kamara look? Michael Thomas is coming back. We don't know how he's going to be. Marquez Galloway has really been a disappointment. Alvin Kamara, do you still have high hopes for him, or you're downgrading him a little bit because of this news with Jameis Winston?
Well, I mean, I think so. I was looking at the waiver wires this morning, and McNichols is high up there, but I actually can make the argument that Taysom Hill is actually going to should be your number one waiver wire pickup. And so I do think that if Taysom Hill comes back, I do think you're going to see a little bit more productivity from a fantasy perspective for your receivers. Last year, Kamara didn't do as well with Hill, but I actually think that they've adjusted and he'll do a lot better. And so I actually think that they'll be better off without Winston, and if they're going to Taysom Hill. That's just my argument with it.
Hey, shout out to Trevor Siemian, Northwestern Wildcat fellow alum, getting that win. So
Brady, right? Yeah.
Hey, Jay, you agree with them, Jameis Winston? Do you think the New Orleans Saints are better off with Taysom Hill? I actually think their offense is going to struggle because of Taysom Hill.
Yeah, no. I don't think they're better. I think Hill is definitely a downgrade. But we'll see. I think Sean Payton, the coach, is very creative. I could see him, pulling out all the stops. And so I think maybe for a couple weeks, I think the change could be okay. I have Alvin Kamara on one team. But again, it's tricky because you're expecting the defenses to key in on Kamara more. And remember, they did bring in Mark Ingram, who got quite a few carries in that game. So if you have Kamara, you definitely have to temper your expectations.
Yeah. Hey, ironically, look, Kamara has not been doing well. Christian McCaffrey, even though he's practicing today, there's no certainty he's playing. He's been a disappointment. Derrick Henry now is out for injury. Probably your best player of the top tight running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, is the only one standing. And nobody liked him, and he's the only one left standing right now.
Well, you know what? I was thinking with all these injuries, do you think that because one of the reasons people drafted running backs first is their stability, but I'm almost wondering now, do you think this elevates wide receivers because they don't get hurt as often, it feels like, as running backs?
Yeah, I still think I think running backs are still a hot commodity. I mean, if you really think about it from a draft perspective, there's not that many superstar running backs first, right? And so everyone's going to go straight for those running backs. And if you think about it, you could have gotten a Jamar Chase in the later first rounds of the draft. And so I still think that, yeah, you're right. And I think we keep seeing this. The running backs you end with is always different than the ones that you start with. And we're going to see that again this year. All the backups are going to end up being fantasy relevant. And the ones you drafted at the first or second round are going to be out of play. But you still need them for the first couple games, the first half of the season.
Jack, we saw a trade come through. Von Miller traded to the Rams on Monday. How do you think this will help the Rams defense and overall as a team?
Oh, it's going to be huge because Aaron Donald has not had as great of a season as we were all hoping for. You stick Von Miller on there, and now defenses cannot double team Aaron Donald as much. This is this is the Rams basically saying we're going to the Super Bowl and we're winning.
Mhm.
So this is really exciting to me. It'll be very interesting if 2 seasons in a row, major quarterback change, and then that team goes to the Super Bowl. And I think they have a really good shot. So to me, this was a great move. I was shocked that Denver was willing to give up Von Miller. But I think this makes the Rams just the number 1 defense, really.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, I bet they're going all in for the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah.
And you wonder, so again, all the teams, if you wonder then thinking the next season, who's thinking what quarterback can I go out there and just bring in the quarterback and then the whole team changes?
Yeah. But more so, suddenly not because of Matthew Stafford, you had the emergence of Cooper Kupp, and no one expected. Look, I was not a Cooper Kupp fan. He just got drafted as an auto draft in my other league. I was never going to pick him up. He has now become the MVP of my league. And this guy, I'm almost in first place because this guy has carried me week in, week out. Yeah. Hey, just a couple of things. Christian McCaffrey, the plan is for the running back hamstring injury to practice on Wednesday, but he is hopeful he'll return in week 9, but he's not definitely sure if he will be returning in week 9. As we said, Adrian Peterson signing with the Tennessee Titans. Chris Carson, neck injury, wants to practice next week. Again, they have a bye week this week, and he would like to play in week 10. Dawson Knox, day to day. He has a broken hand. The hope is that he can play with the cast on as well, too. And also, hey, last night's game. Did any of you guys watch last night's game? Jim, did you watch the Peyton Manning and Eli show last night?
Yeah. You know, I was so mad yesterday, and this was the second week in a row, and I'm just so peeved. Last week, I lost by like 0.5 points, and this week, I lost by almost 4 points. And again, it's because I had Kadarius Toney, and so I had Kadarius Toney and Miller. No, who's the running back for? Darren Williams.
Darrell Williams.
Yeah, playing for Darrell Williams playing for Kansas City, and I had Devontae Booker sitting on my bench. And if all I did was play Booker, I'd be fine. And then the last 2 weeks, and I think that's the worst thing about these fantasy games is you're sitting there watching how your backup is scoring on these points, and if you just played them, you'd be fine. And so I was so frustrated the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing, though. You know, it stinks when you lose and you leave points on the bench. But you have to look at this. For example, I had Michael Pittman Jr. sitting on the bench.
Yep.
He had 25 plus points. But how are you going to pick him over like a Stephon Diggs?
Correct.
You know, I mean, it's a tough decision. I think the main thing is you want to be consistent. If you try flipping back and forth week to week, you know, you're just chasing points, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I looked at it and it's like, at the end of the day, I know if I played those, I'll win. So my team's still pretty solid. But Tom, did you see what I did last night with the 12? Jed, it was late at night. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I was playing around with my phone. And I was like, I'm going to drop Tonyan. I ended up dropping Michael Pittman.
Oh.
So I had to email the team and just say, hey, I don't know what the rules are, but it's okay if you guys don't pick him up because I accidentally dropped him.
Yeah, but at the same time, look, Darrell Williams or Devontae Booker, it's the Kansas City Chiefs playing against the New York Giants. You knew that Patrick Mahomes would get to the red zone and dare to give it to Darrell Williams to run in for a couple scores. You'll probably get 40 yards, maybe 2 touchdowns. Devontae Booker, they've struggled. Their offense is struggling like crazy. Who knew he would do as well as he did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think this last week was a little bit of we see this usually like 2 weeks every season where just everything is flipped and it's not what you expected. So, for example, the Bengals losing to the Jets. Who thought that was going to happen? The Patriots being able to beat the Chargers. You could have maybe seen a little bit of that. But still, you know, the Giants playing the Chiefs as well as they did. I mean, there's always these weeks where some of the storylines get a little bit flipped, but then it usually resets itself the next following week.
Yeah. Well, look at the player who's been flipped as well, too. Look at Travis Kelsey. 27 yards this week, 65 yards last week, no touchdowns. Before that, he had 99 yards, but no touchdowns. We have not seen the Travis Kelsey that we are prone to see every single year. He has struggled this year or the entire Kansas City Chiefs team has struggled this year, with the exception maybe of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, that's been the biggest fantasy story to me is the Chiefs. So many people banked on all the points with the Chiefs, and they're just not there. Mahomes is just not the same guy that he has been. And so what can you say? If you banked a lot on those players, you're definitely having to look other places.
Yeah. Hey, before I go in terms of looking at other games, Jim, what are the waiver pickups that you're looking at this week?
Yeah, I'm looking through some of them right now. Actually, it's funny when you look at the waiver wire pickups, the first names that you see, it's Adrian Peterson, it's Bart Scott, even Jordan Howard from the Eagles is high up there. So you're seeing a lot of running backs. Who else? There's Mike Davis. Mike Davis had 14 touches this week. And so I do think with Calvin Ridley out for I don't know how long, you're going to see Cordell Patterson moving into more of the receiver role, and I can see them giving more touches to Mike Davis. So those of you who dropped Mike Davis for somebody else, it might be time to reconsider him as well too.
Yeah, but the only thing is, look at this. Mike Davis, 9 rushes, 44 yards, 5 catches, 22 yards. He still is doing nothing, even with 14 touches.
But think about it. That's better than what he's done the last couple of weeks, because there was a week 2 weeks ago when he had 6 touches. So I'm thinking, look, this is actually better than nothing, because you got Calvin Ridley down. Who's going to take over? Russell Gage, most likely. Most likely it's going to be Cordell Patterson, Russell Gage, and then Kyle Pitts, right? And you're going to need somebody coming out of the backfield, because they're not going to take Cordell Patterson out of these lineups right now.
The other thing to look at, the Baltimore Ravens, Devontae Freeman or Latavius Murray. I think that if you're desperate for a running back this week, that's another place to, hope someone cashes in a touchdown, basically.
Jed, you're desperate if you start looking at Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray.
You know who did pretty good? I don't know how many. I was looking around at the waivers. I don't see him out there anymore. A couple of weeks ago I did. Michael Carter with the Jets. I don't know if it's just like a 1 week fluke, but he's actually, if you've looked at him consistently, he scored double figures in the last 3 games fantasy wise.
Well, the thing is he's the primary back, so he's been getting all the major carries. Yeah, I mean, this is all about garbage time points. Although the Jets, again, they had a surprise, played really well this past week. So totally agree with you on Michael Carter. But you're probably a couple weeks late if you are just looking to him now.
Yeah, because I saw him in a lot of the waiver wires a couple of weeks ago, but right now I think most people have picked him up. The other 2 receivers that a lot of people have been talking about are more from a dynasty. I think they're doing pretty well. So Van Jefferson with the Rams, and then also Cedric Wilson. Both of them are, they're number 3 on the depth chart. But if anything ever happens to the 1 or 2 receivers, these guys have been playing pretty well where they can be vaulted up to the first or second receiver. But from a dynasty perspective, I can see if you have some room, put them on your lineup and they'll do fine.
Yeah, Chad, I will probably say, Jimmy, help me out, because I was not paying attention to the fact that Dak Prescott was out for the game. Here I was at Jewel shopping, buying dinner and groceries, everything like that. I get a phone call from him saying Dak Prescott is out. By then, everyone is gone. Daniel Jones is gone. So the only one that I was stuck with is their quarterback. Yes, Cooper Rush. And so I picked him up. Look, I love Cedric Wilson. He was the one who got me, caught that touchdown that won me my game. I was scheduled to lose, but then he throws a touchdown, and now I won my game for that league.
So it's funny because after I called him, we were trick-or-treating, right? And I see Tommy picking up Cooper Rush. I was like, who the heck is Cooper Rush? And is there somebody I don't know about? Then I realized he's the backup quarterback for Dallas. And honestly, this past week, if you think about Cooper Rush, who's that quarterback that played for the Jets? These backup quarterbacks actually did decently well.
Yeah. Hey, look, there was no options. Kirk Cousins was gone. Daniel Jones. I said, fine. I will get something. I'll probably get 5 points. He'll probably throw 100 yards and 2 interceptions, but I'll get some points to try to get me, and he did well. He got me about 20-something points.
And the other thing I'll mention, there's been quite a few people who's dropped both Corey Davis and I think Tommy, I think you dropped Odell Beckham.
Yes.
I'll just say, again, the pickings are slim with 4 teams on bye, and Corey Davis, Odell Beckham, I don't think are bad options. Although I don't know if the Browns are off this week. But anyway, I would just say if you see those guys out there, not necessarily bad options.
Yeah. Jet, I necessarily did not want Odell Beckham. I wanted to drop him. I don't like Odell Beckham, but I had to get Cooper Rush. So might as well I had to drop somebody, and he became it.
The other another waiver wire, and then we can get going, is I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's a tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Freiermuth? Do you guys know how he's playing the Bears this week? But he had 4 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. So you need tight end help. People seem to think highly of this guy.
Yeah. Jed, can I make the argument? I'd love to get your thoughts on Bart Scott. Bart Scott had 2 touchdowns. What do you think of him being your primary waiver wire ad?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so if you're, when you're desperate at that point, picking up a touchdown dependent running back is not a bad move. Basically a goal line back who you're saying, okay, can the offense score points? And so in those situations, again, if you had a thought about Philadelphia playing the Detroit, you'd be like, okay, Philadelphia's going to kill Detroit. And so then maybe there's a chance for just a goal line carry. So I don't have a problem with those pickups. Just make sure you look at the matchup. So you make sure it's a high scoring game. So you have a chance to get that run in.
Just so you know, Bart Scott played against the Detroit Lions, 12 rushes, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns. This week he plays the Los Angeles Chargers. The following week he plays the Denver. Look, I mean, in some sense, Miles Sanders is injured. It's not like when he's healthy, he's really good. And so Bart Scott has a legitimate chance. If he continues to do well, he may take that job away from Miles Sanders, who continues to be a huge disappointment. Yeah. Anyone else on your list, Jim?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah. Did you guys also notice with the Manning cast, the Eli Payton cast, they broadcasted this week. They're coming back in 2 weeks because they did not want to broadcast the Bears game.
Oh, I just see
they're
that.
taking a break this week. So the Bears played the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. And I'm sitting there, they probably don't want to touch that game. It's going to be a boring game. So they said, yep, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
But Justin Fields did pretty well this week, like fantasy points. He had 20-something fantasy points. He had that great play for a touchdown. And if they just let him do that, they'll be fine. But Nagy's such a useless offensive.
Well, it's good that Nagy wasn't there. I think that's why they played so well. But I think this is a winnable game for the Bears. So we just got to see. Hopefully, they can figure things out. But if you're looking for help, I think Fields is not a bad option at the quarterback position. I still think Mooney is not a bad wide receiver option, and he's available out there on several wires against the Steelers. The Steelers can be beat on the pass, so not a bad option.
Yeah. Hey, now a few minutes left. I want to go over a couple of games as well, too. Jet, actually, I'll start with you. Cincinnati Bengals loses to the New York Jets 31-34. We were talking about the Jets as well, too. Michael Carter, 15 rushes, 77 yards, but he also caught 9 receptions for 95 yards. He did pretty well for Michael Carter as well, too. Corey Davis was out for this game. The Cincinnati Bengals, look, Jamar Chase had 3 catches, 32 yards, but again, he had a touchdown. But T. Higgins, 4 catches, 97 yards, and even Tyler Boyd had 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown as well, too. So what did you think about that game?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good example of how the difference between the worst and the best teams is pretty thin in the NFL. I mean, basically, I think the Bengals, they just took the Jets for granted. They thought they were going to win this game easily. The backup quarterback, Mike White, came in, had a great game. They had a great game plan, really focused on Michael Carter, and basically just caught the Bengals by surprise. I mean, the Bengals defense should have handled this game a lot better. They didn't. Nice win for the Jets. I expect, though, I mean, you still got decent points out of all of your Bengals. I would, you got to keep starting them and playing them. And then on the other side, if you've got Jets players, this gives you some hope. Michael Carter, Corey Davis coming back. I think you can find some points there.
Jim, Tennessee Titans, we talked about with the injury of Derrick Henry, 34-31 to Indianapolis Colts. We're not going to talk about the Titans as much just because, look, we know A.J. Brown is probably the one to own. The one that I actually want to ask you is Carson Wentz. Is he a top 10 quarterback? If you were in top 10 league, are you starting Carson Wentz?
Yeah, I actually think so. I mean, Carson Wentz, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, they're all doing really well. I don't know if you guys heard T.Y. Hilton got injured in this game, so I think they're monitoring him. But those three, for sure, two of them, Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, I would start. But if you need a good, solid quarterback, it doesn't seem like Kirk Cousins is doing too well lately. But I think Carson Wentz is a good play.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts, they're 3-5, but that is so misleading. They are a much better team. They have lost so many close games this season. They're a good team. And so I totally agree. I think Carson Wentz, especially this weekend, Wentz should be starting. I mean, with 4 teams on bye, he should definitely be starting this weekend.
And I'm still, to be honest, monitoring Marlon Mack because I still think that they're going to trade him by the end of the day today. And actually, he's going to be fantasy relevant.
Don't be surprised if he ends up going to the Tennessee Titans, except his skill set doesn't really fit well with the Titans offense.
Well, you know why they said they don't want to trade him to Tennessee Titans? Because they're in the same division. And they said the last thing we want to do is trade him to somebody who's going to beat us in the division.
Yeah. Jed, San Francisco 49ers 33 against the Chicago Bears 22. I would probably say my Elijah Mitchell, who I have in a lot of different leagues, 137 yards on 18 catches. Deebo Samuel, 6 catches, 171 yards. But for Elijah Mitchell, is it because he was playing the Bears and they're just not the best team? Or, man, especially under Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco rushing, he is someone that you're starting every single week?
Oh, you definitely can start him every week. I mean, whoever is coming out of the San Francisco backfield is a startable running back. I think this game came down to Jimmy Garoppolo coming back to, remember, Jimmy Garoppolo is from Arlington Heights. He's from down the street here, playing in front of family and friends. I think he had a great game, over 300 yards, and that's really what helped Elijah Mitchell, be able to have the running lanes. Because I don't think the Bears defense is too bad against the run, but he had a great game. But yeah, you should be starting Mitchell every week with the 49ers backfield.
At the end of the trade deadline today, will Allen Robinson, Jed, be a Bear or will he be traded?
That's a great question. I think either way, he's gone. Like if he's not traded, he's definitely not re-signing here. And what a disappointment. I mean, he is such a big talent. I don't understand why him and Fields have not been able to connect. But I would not be surprised if he was traded.
I mean,
Jim,
I think
go ahead.
Argument, I mean, don't you think Mooney is really their number one?
Oh, yeah.
Now?
Yeah, that's why I was saying Mooney's the guy to pick up. For whatever reason, the connection he and Fields had from the preseason has just carried over into the season, even though Allen Robinson is a huge talent. Wherever he goes, you should be watching that.
Good, right?
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
Jen, my conspiracy theory is the Bears are cheap. They don't want to pay, so they're saying don't throw to Allen Robinson so we don't have to pay him. But that's just me being my conspiracy theorist idea.
Hey, I don't know if you guys heard about the whole Desean Watson trade falling through. That was really interesting. He was on his way out the door to Miami, and what I read was what happened was basically Houston heard that Watson was going to settle those claims against him. And so basically they were like, wow, there's a pretty good chance he could play. So they upped the price, like right in the middle of the negotiations about to be signed. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, we need more. So then Miami was like, forget it. And they backed out, which to me is just so stupid of Houston.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Jim, Patriots 27-24 against the LA Chargers. Damian Harris has actually been dealing pretty good. 23 carries, 80 yards. The last for last game. Before that, he had 106 yards. Before that, he had 101 yards. Is this the real Damian Harris that we're seeing emerging in the last 3 weeks?
Yeah, actually, I think the running game for New England overall has been pretty good, right? Like if you played a Bolden, he'll get you like 8 points. If you get Damian Harris, he's gotten me consistent. Double-digit points every week. They've been pretty good. The quarterback for San Diego, though, has been losing me games. So this past week, Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray lost me. And a couple of weeks ago, Justin Herbert has lost me as well, too. So I don't know what's going on. They're always up and down, and right now they're just going through a bad period, but I can see next week he'll score like 40 points. But Mike Williams hasn't done anything for San Diego either.
Yeah. The Chargers have been definitely very volatile this week, but I agree with you. I think you got to stick with them. There's too much talent there. I think for the Patriots, they basically just found their identity. With Mac Jones, I think they've really honed in on the rushing game. Their defense has been playing really well. If you've picked up their defense, they've been doing excellent. I mean, I think Belichick he's kind of on overdrive as a coach. They're only winning these games because Belichick is putting together really good defensive schemes and good offensive plans. They should be worse than 4-4, but they're actually a very, very good team.
Ever since that loss to the New England Patriots, where Mac Jones did really well, even though they lost the game, he's been pretty decent, and the Patriots have really been doing pretty well since that game.
Oh, you could argue that Mac Jones is the best rookie to come out this year. That's a very decent argument.
Najee Harris is pretty good.
Oh, I mean at the quarterback position.
Right? Yeah. I'll tell you this, the only thing that I'm surprised by, I thought by now Jonnu Smith would have turned it around. But I keep seeing, if you're looking for a tight end, he's always on the waiver. And I'm always looking at his stats thinking, okay, maybe he'll start breaking out. But Jonnu Smith has been a disappointment. I still think there's a way you can use both tight ends, but Hunter Henry has far surpassed them.
Yeah. Hey, last thing I want to say something else. Denver Broncos 17, Washington Football Team 10. Hey, look, Antonio Gibson, Jed, continues to stink for me, all right? I keep holding out hope. He is terrible for me. But even on the Denver Broncos end, Jared Judy comes back. He has 4 catches, 39 yards. But Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams continues to have a split carry, 10 carries and 9 carries each.
Yeah, the ironic thing for Washington. So I would think, again, the two biggest storylines: one, Kansas City being not as good as everyone expected, and then 2, Washington being a lot worse than everyone expected. Yeah. And so it's interesting. I actually think J.D. McKissick may be more valuable than Antonio Gibson at this point, with all of the receptions coming out of the backfield. He's gotten more points that way.
Got it. Hey, I have to run to a meeting, conference call with South Africa. The one thing I will say, the basketball league that you guys are in, I don't know what you guys are thinking, or I had to waiver wire 10. And I was so thankful this morning when I woke up and no one picked up Terry Rozier. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I needed a point guard.
I picked up Kemba Walker, so I was happy with that.
Yeah, I had who was it that I got? RJ Barrett's been okay.
Yeah, RJ Barrett.
RJ Barrett's a pretty good player, actually.
He is, but sometimes he is. The problem with RJ Barrett is he scores a lot, doesn't get you very much anything else. And boy, does he have low shooting percentages. Your shooting percentages stinks because of him. All right, guys, we'll see you probably on Thursday because you have meetings on Fridays, right, Chad?
Yeah. So either we should do Thursday morning or maybe move to later on the Friday, whichever works.
But pay attention to all these deadline deals that's coming through.
All right,